Welcome, everyone, to episode 407 of Just Joshing. I am your host, Joshua Pentalorusco. I write stuff and podcasts too, and today is the eve of When Words Collide, the online anniversary edition. This was going to be the 10th year. It is going to still be the 10th year, but this year it's going to be online, and I have presentations for everybody to watch. I'm going to be streaming 3 different presentations on my channel tomorrow. Some of these will probably be future episodes, so that'll be really cool. But tonight, before we get to all of that, tonight I conclude my conversation with Chase Degenhardt. We talk about his app. We talk about, MMA. We do some more MMA. We talk about conspiracies. We talk about discipline. We talk about being better. So let's just get to that, shall we?
This episode of Just Joshing is sponsored by Indie Imprint. Indie Imprint supports creators by creators. Whether you are writing a book or creating a video game, Indie Imprint works with its clients to produce, edit, and present their projects to the world. For more information, check out their website at www.indieimprint.com.
Yeah. Like he's there to do a job, and there's a part of you like unconsciously that's aware of that job. That's it. Because if you take your focus off your opponent, you're done. Right? That's the honest truth, right? I mean, you are. I should ask this. I just asked this out of respect. Were you an amateur or a pro? I don't know. So.
I fought professionally for I guess about 6 years. I did fight as an amateur as well.
Okay, no, okay, so that actually this emphasizes my point. You're a trained professional. So is your opponent, right? I'm sure you've had your share of in that many fights. I'm sure you ran into a couple tomato cans here and there, but most of the people you're in there with are very competent, dangerous individuals. And if you're not, even if you're better than them, quote unquote better than them, right? It doesn't mean that they can't. If you're not focused, they can't beat you. You might have been the worst fighter in a fight that you won, because you just did the little things better than your opponent did. And I'm sure vice versa. I'm sure there's a fight or two you lost that you probably should have won, and because you beat yourself. You're like, well, fuck, if I had done, I could have won that had I just done this. And I didn't. I don't know what the fuck, I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about both of those things. When you get to kind of a higher level, you make a mistake and the other guy can take advantage, or vice versa, right? He makes a mistake and I can take advantage. And I feel like a lot of fighters probably feel this way, but there's a couple of my losses for sure where I feel like I was a better fighter, but I made a mistake and that guy was good enough to take advantage of that mistake. And yeah, there's a few fights where, like, vice versa, where I won, where the other guy just made a mistake and I capitalized. So yeah, it happens at a high level for sure. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Every discipline is literally a game of inches. It legit. I'm good, right? At what I do. You're good at what you do, right? Compared to me to another podcaster, there are things I do better. There are things I need to work on. That's an honest assessment, right? And if I don't work on getting better, eventually I get passed by. And vice, right? And that's a big part of it. And even with you, like you're almost at the bottom again, but again, you've got the discipline foundation based on your previous career to learn quickly in the app world. You can skip a lot of the mental mistakes. Your mistakes are going to be like the things you just didn't know, and you can live with that, I think.
Well, it's a lesson that I was, I guess, retaught again relatively recently. But yeah, if you stop trying to improve, you start declining, and you don't realize that. But all of us have bad habits. All of us have weak points.
No, it's true. I mean, it's the war. The war to improve never stops. Just never does. And like I said, and we're both at the very beginning of our new careers, and we're both learning. Like I've learned, like okay, I think I know where I need to focus. So what do you think? You think I have a shot using my voice to make myself zillions and zillions of dollars? I don't know why. That's why I used it.
but yeah, why not? I mean, I think you probably learned a lot just from podcasting that you can kind of carry over, into narration or into whatever else you want to do. I mean, I feel like that world. But I also think it takes a lot of work, right? I did look into it a little bit myself, and in terms of like the editing process, and in terms of sometimes having to do multiple takes, and
oh yeah,
it can it sounds like it's a lot of work, right? So I think you got to be game for it, but you've learned you've learned a lot of lessons about that kind of stuff just from this podcasting. So you've got a little bit of a leg up on somebody starting from. You're not starting from zero, right? You're starting from
1.5. 1.5. I have an inkling of where this possibly can go. Yeah, no, I think that's one. I'm still gonna write. Like I love writing, and actually, as soon as we're done out of here, I actually got to hand in an essay. Why I love to write, and the reason being is I come up with crazy shit, and I enjoy it. And it to me, it's like the possibilities of imagination, and I just love the unknown. That's why I love science fiction so much. So what do you write?
I write literary and science fiction. So I've written a short story collection, which I'm hoping to possibly self-publish this winter, and it's literary with some suspense elements. And then same thing, I've written a novel that's literary with some suspense elements, a bit of a focus on mental health there. And right now I am in the closing stages of I'm going to use a Russ no healthy term here, but a garbage draft of a science fiction novel about cloning, which I call it a garbage draft because it's like I'm finishing it and I know already that it is just like gonna have to be completely rewritten and changed, and there's a ton of work still to be done on it, but yeah, I mean I would agree with you in terms of the imagination. I think that's one of the coolest moments when you have kind of that like aha moment and you know how you're going to do something, or you have an idea for something. I mean for me, I tend to like put a lot of things together, right? So, I don't know, I had another novel idea that I hope to write after this one that came from reading The Selfish Gene, and basically putting that together with the movie Interstellar, right? And it's just a lot. It's just a really cool moment. The other thing I think about writing that's a lot of fun is stories have meaning, right? Like stories can actually change people's lives. I don't know if I'm so confident in my writing that I'll say my writing's going to change anyone's life, but I have definitely had my life changed by reading writing, whether it was reading nonfiction or whether it was reading fiction, right? I mean, you learn some beautiful lessons from the world of fiction, and I think a lot of the most successful authors, their work does impart something about the world, and it can be life-changing, at least for some people. So, yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it sounds like Sorry, I got distracted. The phone buzzed, and it's like, ooh, shiny. But no, it's more along the lines of the fact that I mean, we all love what we love for a reason. It's like for me, my first book was The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury. Love that. That was an amazing book. I just love that he told beautiful stories about Mars and the world there. I still remember the one, There Will Come Soft Rains, where guy just grows trees in the garden, and just trees on Mars, and they just spread everywhere. Once he's planted one, they just plant them all. It's like, what a beautiful idea. Like, what a really just beautiful idea. I love the beauty of the idea. But I also, like, as I've gotten older / wiser, we'll debate the wise thing, I think, another episode somewhere down the road. But I get, like, it's also about characters. I think the one thing I realized, like, I love the pulp novel, but I also realized too that the pulp novel, you need more characterization than what most pulp novels did back in the day, simply because people want to feel something. And I think that more than anything else is, I want to think, yes, but I also want to feel. I want to empathize because I want that experience. And I think that's a big part of writing today.
Yeah. Well, and you think about a lot of your, like, most people's favorite writers, right? A lot of the reason why those books are so popular comes from, the character, right? Or even the character that really resonates with people. Sometimes it isn't that much about the character, but I guess I'm thinking about a lot of the like popular series out there right now, like thinking of two, The Witcher, sort of fantasy, and Last Kingdom, like historical fiction, which have become TV shows. But I think that the reason for sort of the success behind those novels and the reason that they became TV shows, the reason that they have exploded that way, was because they created these incredibly memorable characters that that people wanted to continue to follow. I mean, Game of Thrones is probably another good example. I mean, there's for anyone, it might have been different characters, but for anyone who read those books, right, there were probably a few characters whose stories you just loved, right? I can remember I could never wait for, like, every time one of the Arya's, like, chapters would end.
Arya's good.
And, can't wait for her chapter to come again. Like, that's such a cool character.
Arya was one of his most honest characters. That's why I think she's so popular. You knew exactly who she was. She never pretended to be anything she wasn't. And of all the characters in the series, she probably was the truest to herself. Right? Everybody else had their moments here, moments there. But Arya was Arya the whole way through. And she wasn't an absolute. She grew, she changed, she matured. But she was honest. And you gotta respect an honest character. And that's why I think Arya's like, I always was a bit of a sucker for Jon Snow, and everybody I know liked Tyrion. On some level, everybody liked Tyrion. He was funny, he was witty, but he was also so tragic, right? There's such a tragedy to his character as well, that it was like, that he had gravity. I think he was, I actually met George R.R. Martin once, and I asked him who his favorite character to write. It was Tyrion, by a shot. Because, again, and I can see why, because if you look at Bran's, he's in there. Look at Ned, you're like, you were put in here because you were what we were comfortable with, and you wanted to take that away from us. And that's why you did Ned, right? Some of them you're like, I wish he hadn't made character points of view. Like, Cersei's crazy. Like, there's no other way to describe her. She's just a crazy bitch. That's who she is. And she's not even, but she's not interesting. That's the thing about her. She's insane, but she's not like Harley Quinn's insane. But there's something about Harley Quinn that's oddly joy. When she's done, I think, at her absolute best, there's a little bit of perverse joy in Harley, and I think it's so right. There's a little bit of perverse joy in her, so you're able to follow it, even though you wouldn't want. I mean, I don't care what any guy says, you wouldn't want to date that in a million years. You probably are not walking. You're probably not coming out of that date alive. You're just not, and either she will devour you or one of her ex-boyfriends. Like that's just headache. But she's fun as a character to read because even though she's crazy, she's damaged, when she's done well, there are redeeming qualities to her, and Cersei had none. It's like when she was when her stupidity led her to lose the kingdom, I was like, you know what? I don't feel sorry for you one bit.
No, you wanted her to suffer. I think maybe the sort of comparison that I would make is Guy Gavriki's first, his book Tigana. He has two villains in that one, and one, Brandon, did like way worse shit than the other guy, but he was also like, you empathize with him, right? Like, he did it because his son was murdered, and he showed a lot of like love, and he cared about like the people in his life. Like, he did terrible things, but you sort of understood why, you empathize with him. You didn't necessarily hate him. You wanted him to lose. He was that guy, but you didn't hate him, right? He was interesting. The other character, Alvarico, was, he was like a pure ambition machine, right? Like, he wanted to dominate and control everything, and he didn't really have any of those kind of same redeeming features, so he wasn't as interesting of a character, and there was no reason for you to sort of cheer for him or empathize with him in any way, and I think that sort of I guess just touches into what you're talking about with Cersei, because I mean, there were certain things, like, I guess she cared about her children, but
Kind of.
it just was ambitious, right? Like, she just wanted to win and dominate everything. She didn't have a lot of redeeming qualities.
She was I read the last George R. R. Martin book I read when was this? Jeez, Feast of Crows. And I read Cersei's point of view. It's like wow, you're just a psycho. Like there's nothing. No, like I don't mind. Actually, to be fair, the Emperor in Star Wars is irredeemably evil, but he's fun. It goes back to one. Well, it goes to two things. Ian McDiarmid knew that the character was campy as fuck. The Emperor is campy. Let's just be honest with ourselves, right? He's campy, but he embraced the parts that were campy, and he made it in their own. And number two, he was you could tell. This is where I think the actor brought something out of the character. You could tell that McDiarmid enjoyed playing that role. It was fun for him. It was just like, hey, I'm going to have fun, even though I am completely the scum of the earth. And there are some horrifying things that guy did. But he reveled in it so much. I would not like that. Like, that monster existing is not fun in real life. But that monster in a fictional thing is kind of fun to go with, just because you know what you're going to get, right? There's a certain, I guess, if the character's honestly true to themselves, and they can generate, they have the charisma, quote unquote, to pull that off, you can find something to like, right? If they don't have that charisma, or if they don't have a reason, right, then you just can't. Like, it's why I know. Are you a Japanese anime guy?
I'm not.
No. Okay. So there's two series. One's called Death Note, which is about a character who wants to reform the world, and he's get this note that can write a person's name in it and they will die. And there's Code Geass, which is about a guy given a great power, tactical genius. They're both geniuses. I hate light. I was like, I can empathize with Lelouch, but I cannot, like, I just don't like you. I think you're a piece of shit. You're interesting. Some of the things you do are really incredibly interesting and clever, but you're a piece of shit. You do interesting, clever, and you do terrible things too. But I get you. I understand where you're coming from, right? And if I have that, right, yeah, no one in their right mind would go along with this ride, but still, you know what? I can at least, there's something about you that I think that still feels human. Whereas I think when you look at, I think the real trick with bad guys is they can be a lot of fun, but they either have to completely be an absolute, in which case they like the Emperor's an absolutely evil character. His arc has been completed forever. He's never going to grow beyond what he is, right?
Yeah.
So he's never going to change. But he's an absolute, and you know it. Or you're a bad guy with with a really like interesting backstory, and you can see the journey that got you here. If you those are bad guys that people can get into. So I don't know. That's just my theory.
I always like the stories like where, you don't really know if the bad guy is like the bad guy. I'm thinking, I can't remember the name of the movie, but it was like a Clive Owen movie. He's I think Denzel was the other guy in it. But anyways, he's like an engineer whose wife gets murdered, and the guys who murder his wife like get off. So he basically like uses his like engineering knowledge to start like murdering the people responsible, as well as like the people, like not just the criminals, but like the people in the justice system as well.
Yep.
And it was like, it's like he's kind of the bad guy because he's like killing a lot of people, but at the same time, yeah, his wife was murdered, and the guys who did it got away with it, and it was because like he was like trying to prove a point, right? So you had that like level of empathy. It wasn't a great movie, but I kind of like that sort of like playing with the idea of like, this guy he's kind of the villain, but you kind of empathize with him as well.
Well, the best villains in most stories have a legit point. Like they're not. It's almost like the anti-hero villain line is actually really close, right? You can go with the anti-hero path is, and where the anti-hero and a good villain, almost like a great villain is when they have a point. When they have a legitimate point to what they're right on this one thing they're right. The anti-hero might still do wrong things like the villain. It's kind of like I think the difference between, it's like Robin Hood and the Joker, right? Robin Hood is doing technically the wrong thing. He's robbing people to feed other people. I mean, when you get right down to it, he's an anti-hero because he's the anti-hero can point out the fatal flaws in the system. Hey, listen, I wouldn't be doing this if you actually fed your people right. Like that's what happens there. Whereas the Joker, yeah, you don't feed your people, but I'm just gonna do this anyway, even this was right? Yeah, you're flawed, but I'm just gonna do it because I'm an asshole, right? Or because I can,
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting character too, because there's nothing like, I mean, there's really not a lot redeemable about the Joker
at all.
But yeah, I mean he's kind of compelling and fun anyways. Like maybe it's because it's so Maybe it's because he's, maybe it's because he is so black and white, right? And rather than, like you talked about the Emperor being kind of fun, even though he's pure evil, right? And he's like, you take it that far, and the character kind of has like some kind of charisma that they can actually run with that.
So they're no longer people, they're forces of nature. Right? That's the thing. Like, the Joker's not really a person. No person could be the Joker. But what makes them compelling is, okay, this is a rock hard absolute. The Joker's not going to change. The one constant about the Joker is he doesn't change. He comes in and causes chaos. It's what he does. As he put it in the movie, I'm a dog that chases cars. I wouldn't know what I'd do with it. I actually caught it. I just do things. That's the most honest thing the Joker says in the whole movie. It's the most honest thing he says. He lies in a lot of other scenes, but that is the Joker in a nutshell. He's the dog that chases. You know this dog is going to chase cars, right? It doesn't matter what happens afterwards. You just know that he's going to chase that car. It's what the Joker does with Batman is he, because he's such an absolute, he forces anybody that confronts him to deal with their principles. Batman won't kill. Well, I'm not going to change. I'm not going to stop. Now what do you do? Right? And you look at a lot of the other people he touched in that, and not just in the movie, you look at even in the comic books, he touch and twist everything around him, because it's what he does. He's the storm. Right? Where the hero shows his resiliency is how he is resilient against that storm. He doesn't always walk away in one piece either. Sometimes the storm wins. That's what makes the Joker compelling. But you can't have him in everything, because if you have him in everything, you ruin the mystique.
One of the interesting lines that I remember from the movie was, let's see if I can remember the line exactly, but he's talking like, if something like, if the school bus, like if a bus full of soldiers gets blown up, nobody cares. It's kind of what we expected, right? Like, not that we don't care, of course it's sad, but we, expect that soldiers fighting are going to be in danger, right? Like a school bus full of kids gets blown up, everybody loses their minds, right?
Well, actually, he says, I go after one little old mare. Just one mare.
Yeah.
Right? And the way he put that, this is just the way he put that, right? Because to him there was no difference.
Yeah, and so like I do think that too is part of like the fun of the character, right? Is he's like pointing out that our sort of like the common, the regular narrative that we have doesn't necessarily make as much sense as we think it does if we sort of look at it objectively, right? Like, and so he's a very bizarre character, and he's interesting, and he's pure evil, right? Like there's no line with him, right? Like he would blow up a bus full of soldiers just as easily as he would go after a mare. That's just what he does. But he's also pointing out like sort of the absurdity of the system.
Oh yeah.
The narrative that we have.
Well, actually, see, this is what. So we talked about this off the air, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just going to mention this here. I've pissed some people off in this last couple of weeks, but I saw something last night about grief, and I realized that as pretty much a culture, almost all of us are grieving, right? Almost all of us are. What we're grieving is we are having to come to terms with the fact that the world is more terrifying than we remember it to be. It has always been this way. This is like my therapy. This is Josh Therapy 101. Subscribe only if you're ready for it. Alright, it's just my opinion, ladies and gentlemen. I dealt with my own questions of mortality a long time ago. I know one day I'm not going to be here anymore. I don't have kids. If I had kids, I think I'd be a little bit more concerned about the reality around me, because I would have more to lose. But I don't. And since I don't really have much to lose, and I know one day I'm going to die, the fact that this virus exists to me doesn't really change my reality that much. It will come and it will go. Or it will stay. And either way, I'll live with it until I'm not here anymore. That's it. Right? And that's my reality. Most people, though, this was an end to some people's jobs. This was an end to people's way of life as they knew it. People are scared out of their minds because all these familiar things that we normally tend to do, they don't work right now. And the truly terrifying thing about right now is life's unfair, and bad things that no one has any control over can happen to good people and people you love. It's the most terrifying kind of world. And when you understand that, like I said this off the air, I think both sides of the mass debate are crazy. But they're crazy in different ways. Right? They're crazy in different ways. The people that are going, put on your mask or else. The thing that I'm going to say this. You might be right, but here's the thing. That didn't work in kindergarten. It's not going to work now. Why are you doing it this way? Why not, like, you're not going to change, but I get it. Because when you're doing that, right, you're basically, you're able to do something. You're doing something you feel is productive, right? On the flip side, people that are looking for a conspiracy right now, people that are looking for a reason this is happening or a bad guy to blame, that's also grief. Because that's an easier world to live in. You're not ready to face that terrifying truth just yet, so you're creating an enemy. Yeah. Right? You're both crazy, but you're both grieving. And that's actually what you both have in common right now.
It's very interesting because I was having a discussion about this with a friend not long ago, and one of the major triggers of like mental health issues is actually an interruption of routine, right? Mm-hmm. So this is why they say like divorce is such a big trigger for like depression or addiction or what have you, because it's something that you can count on every day, even if it's terrible, but it's something that you count on every single day that's no longer there. And certainly, like, I was laid off for a while. I work a day job, like when I was laid off, like the first 2 weeks of that were really, really difficult. And part of it was that regular routine that I had, where I was waking up at a certain time, doing something every day, going to the gym afterwards, like all this stuff that I just did every day. That was all over. And it was like I had all this time to work on, my writing, to work on my business, to work on whatever else. And I was actually less productive. And, I think it was because, in large part, like, that breakup of routine is so difficult. And eventually I was able to kind of get past that. But for a lot of people, that hasn't ended, right? That the routine really hasn't come back, or they haven't been able to develop one. So they're still in that same state of being frustrated and scared. The other thing that I would, look at in terms of the idea of grief, or mental health difficulties, is that, we really, for most of our lives, like maybe with the exception of say, a period like 9/11, we've existed with the illusion of safety and order, most of us, right? Like there's, sure, there's stuff that can happen. You know that, in your head that, something could happen. You could get hit by a bus, that like a tornado could hit, whatever, but you feel safe most of the time. And this is really, sort of exposed the fact that we really don't have that much control over what goes on. We don't have that much control over our mortality, and a lot of people don't deal with that very well. They want to feel safe, and so I think all the things. They have some knowledge that other people don't have.
Conspiracy is interesting. I used to be really big into the conspiracy stuff. I still enjoy a good one because
Okay.
yeah, right. No, because okay, so rightly or wrongly, the reality is the conspiracy mindset exists because our governments have no credibility. That's the truth, right? Right. That's why they exist. There's no other reason. Some conspiracies are true. Government did infiltrate the media. It's been done. It's been proven, right? JFK is a very questionable thing. I mean, let's be honest. There's no such. I mean, I've never seen a magic bullet do that, right? You can look at. I mean, 9/11 is an inside job. That actually, to me, is very likely occurring. Like the virus possibly being man-made. That's definitely a possibility today with the technology we have. Like, these aren't that out of the realm of possibility.
The biggest one I would point out actually is the biggest conspiracy that turned out to be true is we're all under surveillance.
Yes.
Fine.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, we're just, you know, we all know it now. We all just sort of accept it. Like,
yeah,
I've got my phone here in the room. If people want to listen, they can.
Yeah, no, like we are a surveillance society. We are. I mean, the United States is an open fascism. Like, there's no ifs and no. I mean, if fascism is corporate and government merged, Donald Trump is both. Like the public face of it. Can't argue that. So I don't. So when I look at a conspiracy theory, and there's some interesting things. Like Bill Gates is an interesting person to look up. Fauci is an interesting person to look up. There's some interesting things. But I also realize at some point you have to realize too that's a narrative. That's also a narrative, like every other narrative. And at some point, somehow, some way, you have to put your faith in something. You have to, right? So that's the reality, and that's why I don't completely dismiss it. It's like some of the wacky things I see. I have friends who are big conspiracy nuts. I have people who are completely the opposite end of the spectrum, and I'm good with both because honestly, the world is bigger than me, and I'm good with that. And you know what? If you believe that the Earth is flat and that lizard people are here, awesome. You know what? You might be right. Who the fuck knows? I am certainly not. I know nothing, right? And that's how I look at it. That's how I know nothing, and I'm good with that, right? But the thing of it is, right? I get it. Most of the conspiracy stuff, if you were to break it down, is governments have destroyed their own credibility, and because they don't have any credibility, and people know people know that the government that they're going to get robbed. People know. I mean, businesses did not stop when this hit. When we were locked down, businesses still ran. Banks made a fortune buying property right during this. This was a robbery. There's no question about that. And yet, right? So this feeds that mentality. That's why that mentality isn't completely off kilter. That all said, like I said, I don't know. I don't think this virus is from a secret cabal and that did their deal either. But that's me, right? I don't. I'm a big enough man to know that the world is bigger than me, and that anybody that has the idea that anyone's controlling this mess is fucking crazy. Nobody is. Does that make sense, by the way? Or am I?
No, I mean, it was a bit of a rant, but no, I think it does make sense, right? I mean, I think that's, you know, one of probably the sort of the scary things about living in the modern day, where we do have, you know, fake news out there, is it has become more difficult to discern the truth, and to an extent, it's also, I think, fair to say, you know, because as you said, we do know that you know, government and media are closer maybe than they should be. You know, that almost sort of like so inured to it, we're just kind of like, oh, whatever, you know, like Justin Trudeau, like, you know, did this thing with weird thing with his charity, which, you know, I mean, it's not the biggest scandal ever in history, right? But it's like nationally we're just sort of like, well, you know, whatever, fourth time, like, and we sort of just accepted that politicians are just going to behave this way, whether they're conservative or liberal or whoever they are, they're going to be corrupt.
Yeah, that's it, and as long as it's that way, this mindset is never going to be completely off kilter. No matter how much we would like it to be in some ways, it is what it is. You know?
Yeah.
It is what it is. So, I think before we wrap up, let's go a little bit in detail about your app, because I think people should actually get a real... I got to play with it, ladies and gentlemen. It was fun. And I think if you're an author, you definitely kind of want to hear the full scoop here, and then we'll wrap this up. So, Mr. Chase.
Yeah, so, like I said sort of earlier in the show, LitWorld is an events app for readers and writers. It is, I guess, probably the primary sort of use or purpose of it for you to find events that your favorite authors are putting on, and ideally, or that your favorite authors are attending, either in your community or online, because right now, of course, everything is virtual, so it's all virtual reading, virtual workshops. I've seen virtual book signings. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but I have seen those events advertised, and basically we want you to be able to find those events. We want you to be able to interact with your favorite authors. If you are a reader, you're going to be able to follow your favorite authors and get notifications when they're appearing in your area, when they have new books coming out, this kind of thing. You're also going to be able to ask them questions. If you are an author, of course, you'll be able to send readers those notifications. If you're an events promoter or an event marketer, you're going to be able to promote your event. You're going to be able to find authors who might like to be on your conference or appear on your podcast or whatever it is. And so, I guess in general, the idea is that you be able to connect with the people that you need to connect to, whether they're readers or whether they're writers, whether they are event promoters. We want to try to give those people the opportunity to connect with each other more often. For me personally, the reason that I decided to create this was, I became involved with the literary community in Calgary and in Edmonton, and it was transformative for me to interact with all these people. I got to meet one of my heroes who I mentioned earlier in the show, a guy got real K. It was an amazing experience, amazing guy, and I'd love for more people to have that experience, to meet the authors that have impacted their lives, and also to allow the authors to meet the people whose lives they've impacted with their work. So that is what LitWorld is, I guess, in a nutshell. I don't know if there's anything else I should.
So when's the launch? Sorry.
Yeah, so I will say, I guess, two other things. I don't know. I don't know exactly when this is going to air, but
My plan is just to give you an idea. Within a probable, well, we'll talk about it out here. It's either going to be, because you were supposed to be this week. Like that was the actual plan. And when I went to do your interview, it was like, well, no. So my episodes at 4:05 and 4:06, you're coming up here because you're filling that gap, right? Right. So I might put you back down there, right? Which would be 4 weeks from now, kind of deal. With that, right? So.
Okay. So we should be live by August long weekend, I believe. So the website is litworldevents.com. So LitWorldEvents.com.
do.
This is Kathleen with BookBrush, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about BookBrush.com. Our team developed BookBrush for authors like you after having hundreds of conversations with authors that were struggling with creating images or simply paying too much per image to have a graphic designer do the job. So we created, for authors specifically, the easiest way to create professional ads and social media images for your books. We'd love to have you join us at bookbrush.com.
That was my conversation with Chase Degenhardt, ladies and gentlemen. Chase is awesome. I really enjoyed this chat. Check out his AuthorBright. Like, check out his app, because honestly, it's an incredible thing. Apparently the website's still not up quite yet, but definitely go to When Words Collide this weekend and find him. He'll be some random chats, doing some of his own workshops as well. Talk to him, because it's going to be good. And that is where we are this weekend. I'm in this weird position, I guess, where I have a lot going on. I mean, I've been creating things happening pretty much since the pandemic has begun, and I'm going to keep going until the pandemic has ended. Tomorrow night, I have two panels, plus I'm a guest on Go Indie Now live. So we'll go with my panels. My panels are podcasting A to Z. I've done this before, but this year there's a bigger emphasis on Zoom and streaming. So if you want to know how to do that with your podcast, I will show you how to do that and talk just some of the things I've always talked about with podcasts. The second thing I'm doing is freelancing. So I quit my job and became a freelancer. And it's been going. I've comfortably made 4 figures doing it. I'm trying now to get to 5 and eventually 6 figures. So how am I doing it? What am I doing? How do I look at clients? How do I look at myself? That's going to be talked about. And starting next week, I'm officially advertising my audiobook business. I already got my first client, and I got more coming. Got lots of ideas being planned. So that's going to be number 2. Also Saturday, the Aurora Awards. I'm hosting an interview show with Joe Compton, and we're going to be interviewing various nominees, maybe yours truly as well, who knows. But then there's the Aurora Awards. I'm up for Best Fan Related again. Maybe I win it, maybe I don't. If I do win it, I have to wear a tutu some point down the road. I do another workshop, and that is Advertising in the Apocalypse. That's going to be a lot of fun. I hate the book meme. Hey, the world's on fire, please buy my books. While people do laugh at that, I'm going to destroy it. I'm not going to lie to you about that. So, all that's this weekend. Story time will be probably Sunday night. My reading guest is Jay Lavelle. So, with that all said, guys, thanks for listening. I'm not going to do my usual plugs this time. I'll do them again Sunday. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys after When Words Collide. All right? All right.
Josh.